Sorry about the delay. I had forgot the adapter for the video machine. Are we ready to get started? All right, welcome to the April 15th meeting. We'll start with introductions and announcements. Anybody have any announcements? And I guess we should do roll call, I guess.
I'm standing in for Tanya for the parks because she's at a better point.
Gotcha. Let's do introductions. We'll just roll around the table and then we'll hit the Zoom. My name is Todd Zarnitz. I'll be chairing the meeting.
We'll go next. Joselle Johnson, member of the board and neighbor in the southeast of the Northwest.
That's not a contradiction, right?
No, but I could.
Michael Vieira, a member of the board in the Northwest.
Regina Hauser, member of the board, live right over there.
Steve Pinger, member of the board, north by northwest. Yeah.
Bill Johnson, member of the board, on Raleigh Street.
Norm Golston, live on Quimby Street, with Slabtown Kiwanis Club, board of the Portland Chinatown Museum, and programs manager for the Architectural Heritage Center.
And a regular attendee, about twice at least.
We'll go to Zoomland. Richard.
Rich Grunesteisky, I'm the treasurer of the NWDA and a member of the board.
Juliet.
Juliet Himes, board member and also member of the Government Transition Advisory Committee.
And Mockles.
Is he frozen?
Stephen.
Steve Moskowitz, member of the board.
Zoe.
Zoe Kelleher, member of the board.
Krista.
Krista Reyes-Klein, board member and 1 block away on Thurman.
Alan. Alan might not be able to hear us or be able to say anything. Alan Clausen, Northwest Examiner. And then Joselle's double dipping, looks like.
It's frozen.
Oh, yeah. I was, for Juliet, I'm taking pictures. Did you see that, Juliet? You get pictures coming.
Thank you very much.
Tanya's status.
So Tanya had an emergency vet appointment, so I'll be speaking on the parks. Black Ivy's at the vet.
Any announcements from anybody? All right, we'll go into a meeting minutes review. Mr. Pinker.
Meeting minutes were issued with the agenda packet. As if you recall, the meeting minutes consist of the updated agenda along with the link to recording. I move to approve them as the record of our March meeting.
Is there a second? Second. Joselle seconds. Any discussion, comments, objections?
Is that going to be the way we keep minutes in the future, agenda and like and the recording, or is that
For at least the next month. It's what I can manage.
Okay, I was just
But I
curious.
thought, adding the agenda is really kind of a benign thing, don't you think? So you can begin to try and figure out where
Certainly.
stuff is in
Yeah.
what order, but
Yeah.
certainly not what time.
And I started posting
That's
up.
the way the city does it, so what the heck?
I started posting up videos of the meeting to YouTube channel, and so I can pass that link around, but everybody can check out what we're doing there.
And I don't believe we're getting them for the board meetings, but we're certainly getting AI generated minutes for the planning committee meetings, which is all.
They're not that good, but they're
Great.
depends on your point of view of what you're looking for. If you're looking for entertainment, it's got that in there.
What was it last month? Greg Tyson has changed his name to Sarah.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it's good to know because he didn't really say it, but
Yeah.
I knew it was true.
Yeah, I sensed something coming from Greg.
Any objection to approving the meeting minutes? All right, we'll move the minutes.
This is exactly the sort of thing that will get reported.
Well, I think we changed things around, so we're gonna go into the communication committee report first. And then did Juliet want to go first? Was that a reason for the time frame? Okay, so we'll hand things over to Juliet.
Okay, so I'm so sorry that I can't be with you in person tonight. I have to get off at 6:30 and go testify to city council about the budget on behalf of the GTAC Government Transition Advisory Committee. So I just thought I would talk about that for a minute. Those of us testifying will be the outgoing co-chairs, Zach Curl and Destiny Magana Pablo, and the incoming chairs, who will be me and a woman named Amy Randall. So we'll start chairing in May and we'll do it for about 4 months. And you may not know that this committee is now over a year old. So we've really gelled as a group, and that's good because stuff is going to start to get real pretty soon. And so I thought you might want to know what our recommendations are to the budget committee, to the city council, excuse me. So on Saturday, we testified and told them that they were not providing enough staff for the new city council. And we also told them that they need to do that we're going to be making recommendations about community engagement and onboarding. And so tonight we are going to talk to them about district offices and tell them, do not fund permanent district offices now. Put something temporary in place for January 1 and let the new council figure it out. I don't think there's anything budgeted for it anyway. And then we are also going to, this is when we're going to talk about community engagement tonight. The other part of it on Saturday. Sorry, things got a little bit scattered because one of us didn't get an invitation. It was kind of strung together at the end. It was more about community engagement. So that's what we're saying to them. After the budget is done and things calm down a little bit, we're developing a plan for our summer community engagement, and then we will be formulating, I guess, our final recommendations to council in September. That's about all I know about that. I think that this charter reform should have been done in 2 phases, and they should have figured out what they needed to do right now and what they could defer. Because in trying not to create loose ends, they made several decisions that were kind of hasty. One was they passed a motion to have permanent district offices by January 1, and that's what we are disagreeing with. But no definition, no parameters, no requirements. They also made the decision to match the districts to the coalitions. I thought that was very hasty. It was not a part of the redistricting process. I didn't see any data or really analysis. They just wanted to conform with the charter, and I thought that deserved a lot more thought. They don't really have any provision for a community engagement plan, and we're trying to figure that out. And then they defined the org chart and told us really that we shouldn't have any input into it, and we haven't, but that we have to work around that in a lot of the other things we're doing, which makes it a little awkward. So now they are working on developing these 4 disciplines, which will be managed by the deputy city administrators, and they are sustainability, equity, communications, and community outreach. I think that's something they could defer till later. I have no idea the budgetary implications of that. That's something I really want to understand better because it seems pretty nebulous at this point. So I'll be learning more about that and why it's important as we go ahead. So was that confusing enough? Could I answer any questions?
Steve has a question.
What was the 3rd pillar?
I said equity, communications, sustainability, and community engagement.
Thank you.
Questions for Juliet?
What's the difference between communications and community engagement?
I was wondering.
Yeah.
Don't know yet. We don't
Is that-
really know what, so we are starting to, we're working on community engagement and we are setting up some meetings with staff to better understand. I mean, it's not, none of it is defined yet.
Steve?
You had suggested that it may not have been appropriate to match the DCOs with the new districts. What alternative would there be? And the real question behind that is what level of independence will the DCOs have from the city?
You know, I don't know. There was never any analysis of that done. I just thought it was a hasty decision. And this is just my opinion. This is not the opinion of my committee. I just thought it was done hastily without any analysis or comps or data. It wasn't part, it should have been an input into the Independent Districting Commission, I thought. And, you know, so much of the work they're doing, they do a lot of research and analysis and comparison with peer cities. And then some of these other decisions, they just seem to make off the cuff, I guess is my point. Not that I'm sure it would have been better done another way, Steve, but I just thought it deserved a little more time and that it should have been discussed in one of the committees, either the Independent Districting Commission or our committee, but the Districting Commission didn't hear of it before we did.
Perhaps, yeah, thank you. Perhaps when you speak to the NW activities and D4 activities, you could give us a little bit of a sense of that question of it.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, I'm on the governance committee for NWNW, working on the bylaws to transition it to the District 4 Coalition office. It's, so I have a lot to say about that in the NWNW report, I guess.
Great.
So I'll give you a thorough update there and have some questions for you guys about that too.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear that.
Anything else at the moment? Okay, Steve, one more.
What prospect do these proposals or dissents, I guess, that you have, what prospect do they have of carrying?
Which ones? What do you mean by that?
Well, it seems like you were noting that much of the recommendations that you're dealing with could or should have been done in 2 phases, which kind of suggests deferring a whole bunch of stuff off and beyond just the offices. And secondly, again, what I was just referring to, the matching the DCOs with the proposed districts. If you're questioning those positions, how will they go forward?
I'm just saying philosophically that I feel like some of this process has been rushed, and while some of it has been really thorough, and I mean, the districting thing, that decision was made, and so was the org chart, and so were a number of others. I'm just saying that the process has been inconsistent in terms of how much they weigh certain decisions, how much committee input there is into certain decisions, and other things just happen. And you know, the district offices, even though the decision was made to have them by January 1, I think just out of necessity, it's going to have to be deferred because, as I said, there are no requirements for it. There's a lot of disagreement. You know, we're not convinced, any of us, that we even need one in District 4. Maybe those resources would be better dedicated to the east side where they don't have City Hall. I mean, there's just a whole lot to discuss there. And I think as of now, there's no budget for those district offices anyway, and they'd be very expensive to make secure in terms of both personal security and internet security. So it's just something that I just don't think it's going to be possible to have permanent or even wise to have permanent district offices by January 1, and that's a position of the committee too.
I think those are good points. All right, we'll leave it there for now. Anything last minute before we?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Move on to county election and Michael Bier.
Okay, first of all, thanks to Steve Moskowitz for being one of the moderators in the forum for the district attorney last month on March 27th. And Steve, any comments about that? You had firsthand. Guess not, okay.
Well, I think it was really important to have that session, and I think as I heard, we had at least over 100, something like that, people who were participating in the webinar. And I think it helped clarify a lot of the issues and allow the two candidates to kind of clarify their own positions and their own approaches to dealing with public safety from the role of being a district attorney. So it was a great opportunity and glad to have helped out.
Yeah, thank you. The next upcoming event is the Multnomah County Commissioners Forum. We are District 1. There are 5 candidates for the one position. The forum will be next week on the 25th. I think that's a Wednesday. And it will be at Lincoln High School from 5:30 to 7:30. We're working on internet connections for that also so that we can stream it just like we did the DAs. We've got to work with the school district on those internet connections, but we're hoping to do that. And a lot of people don't realize that the actual election for the county commissioners is May 21st. You kind of get this idea that it's next November, but it's May 21st. So you need to start paying attention if you're at all interested in what's going on there. And again, 5 candidates. Probably the candidate you're most familiar with is Vadim Mazorski. The next event is really the kind of fun event that Todd sent an email out about this afternoon, the mayoral mixer on May 17th from 4 to 7 p.m. It's going to be at the Laurelhurst Club, and all 6 candidates for the mayor's position have already signed on for it. So we will have 6 candidates there. They're not really going to be a formal debate, but they'll have about 10 minutes each just to kind of meet and greet, and then they'll circulate in the room or in the building with everyone who's there. The attendance is actually limited to probably 200 people. And as Todd said this afternoon, get your tickets right away, because this is not only NW, but it's also Southeast Uplift. So the 2 coalitions are putting this event on. Beer and wine will be available, $5 each, and soft drinks also. Northwest Examiner will get an invitation. We'll also have the Oregonian there and a paper from the Southeast, and perhaps 1 television station. We're not sure yet. This will also be streamed, and kind of to make the whole thing fun, the master of ceremonies for the event will be Poison Waters, our own very celebrated drag queen for Portland, will be handling the MC responsibilities. So we're all looking forward to it. Once we're past that, we're taking the summer off, and then the next events are in the fall. For the city council, District 4, we now have 17 candidates for the 3 positions here in District 4. I try to keep up. I looked today and there's still 17 now. It changes from day to day. The strange thing is the candidates have, or somebody who wants to be a candidate has until August 27th to file with the city. So we can't even know who will be on the ballot until sometime after August 27th. So we are sponsoring 4 forums with 5 candidates each, or 4 candidates each, and one will probably have 5 candidates if we have the current 17. The tentative dates will be September 19th and September 26th, and then also October 3rd and October 10th. And we wanted to get those done because on October 16th, ballots are sent out. So we wanted everybody to have a chance to see all 17 candidates before you get your ballot. So that's the process we're following. And again, we're hoping to be able to live stream that also for people who are not, actually that will be exclusively a streaming event. The one that's going to be the most fun though, again, is the mayoral mixer. And if you're interested at all, get your tickets right away, because they're already going fast. Just check again with Carl, they're going.
Any questions for Mike?
I just wanted to say the mixer invite says that it's on it's on Thursday, May 17th, but May 17th is actually a Friday. So I'm assuming that was just a typo. So it's actually on a,
Of course, I feel like every email we get from NW now has like some sort of date time.
It is,
mix up.
Friday is the May 17th, isn't it?
Program.
So what day of the week is it? Do we know?
It's a Friday.
Okay, so it's May
it's a
17th.
Friday, but
Friday,
they
May
said it
Cool.
was on Thursday. So it's just,
No.
Somebody's got like an old calendar there or something.
Yeah.
all right. So we just stick with the actual date, not the day. All right. So it will be on a Friday. Okay.
One other comment, for the city council candidates, I think this is correct. Can you check on this, or you can confirm this, that our District 4 candidates will only have a 2-year term? They won't have a full 4-year term. We're one of the 2 districts that will only have candidates serve for 2 years, and then the next subsequent in what will that be, 2026, they'll have 4-year terms. So they're starting out with all 4 districts having council representatives, but then they'll stagger the elections after 2026.
That was the decision that was made unless it's been changed.
As is all
But
positions.
that's correct.
That's,
That was correct.
I look every day and that's still the decision. That's it. Any questions?
Just a comment, I'll be one of the moderators for the District County Commissioner Forum at Lincoln. And then I think this mayoral mix will be super fun. We'll be able to hobnob with the mayoral candidates in a pretty tight group, and $5 bids can't be that. So
Okay.
difficult to see a couple be there.
So the primary election date is what again? May
May 21st.
first, so month out.
Which is not the primary for is it only the county?
County, has nothing to do
Well,
with the city.
special election.
Special election, but nothing for the city per se.
Is it on the same day? Those
Yeah.
two? Okay.
Oh, I guess this year.
It's a
primary
special
and
election.
a meeting, then-
Yeah, because it's a special election because the person that has held that position is running for,
There's a vacancy because one of the commissioners resigned
right,
to run for the congressional district. I forgot
Right.
which one on the east side. So yes.
Luminar seat.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Michael? All right, thank you so much. Something came up a couple weeks ago, I guess, for the news linker, which Michael and I, kind of got that going.
Most
like
of
a
the
year
time.
ago or something. And sort of, one of the things that I've really wanted us to focus on at some point, I just had never gotten around to making it a big issue, is fundraising. And how do we get, more money into the organization? And one of the ways we kind of thought was maybe we could do some advertising in like a publication, like a newsletter or this or that. We already have a couple little shout outs in there. So Joselle came and said that she wanted to put a notice for NNCC about their upcoming meeting, and is there like a schedule of fees to advertise in the news linker? And I said, I don't know, well, there should be. And so we came up with $50. And then became the question though, do we incur a tax liability by taking that $50? And at that point, do we want to open up advertising to the community, to political candidates, and all the rest? So all of a sudden, this little idea became like kind of complicated. Richard kind of looked up initially online and said that if a nonprofit puts out a publication, you can advertise in it and not incur a tax liability. But probably we need a lawyer to look at that. And then I thought, well, we better bring this issue before the group and see what their thoughts are about doing any of this in the first place. Because we're going to put, political ads in the news linker or whatever, that all of a sudden we need kind of like, there's a conflict there maybe. And there needs to be some discussion. So go ahead, open it up.
I have questions, having run nonprofits. Do we currently file a 990 every year?
That's a question for Rich, I would say.
Richard? Yes, we do. Okay. And I hear this, it would be nice to have money and like, well, for what? I mean, what do we want to, what? what's our budget look like where the income is needed? So, I mean, because when you just said that, and I was kind of like, okay, yeah, but what do we need money for? And I'm not being.
I'm sure we can find things.
Well,
yeah.
that's my point. I mean, I'm not being facetious.
Right.
It's like, if we're going to go that route, then, we have to have, I know we have a budget, but,
I think that each of the committees has to put a budget in their work plan. And so I know that Parks has, because we're quite heavy on needing funds to support the permits and the bans and everything else, but I thought the others did too.
the safety committee hasn't had a budget item in the 2 or 3 years I've been involved with it.
Steve?
I think you're right, Richard, you may want to speak to this, but the summer concerts are 80% of the budget at
Right.
least. The only other thing I can think of was there's some website redesign fees a few years ago, but generally speaking, you're correct that the committees are supposed to provide budgets, and the planning committee has provided a budget, but it seldom collects on the budget. And it's, the costs are fairly incidental. But at the same time, the pending sale of NNCC has at least momentarily suggested some questions about, God, what would you do with that, with the funds coming out of that, even if it's just accrued interest on that.
I think some of the things that come to mind for me are, okay, sorry.
And so you go from summer concerts and, printing fees to hiring a lobbyist, in my book, or an accountant, a lawyer. And, these are the sorts of things that we kept speaking to the coalition about, of, God, what would really be helpful was somebody that knew their way around persuasion and advocacy. And, it just never got any traction. Because NWDA just wasn't the headset, and still isn't as far as I can tell. That may change, but speaking from my perspective on the planning committee over the last 10+ years, there's been a few handfuls of situations in which somebody that could stay on an issue, make the rounds at City Hall, would have made a difference. And asking a lay organization to do that is, it just doesn't get there. Other cities do provide funding in varying degrees. I mean, Milwaukee is one that I'm sort of accidentally more familiar with. And, they have, they get tax revenues, there's carve-outs for individual neighborhoods, but anyway.
I think, what comes to mind for me is like maybe money to do like a mailer out to the neighborhood, to whatever the zip codes are we serve, things like that, like little things that, right now I wouldn't want to spend any money on, just because I'd rather have money come in to spend money, basically. And we're not obviously talking about, anything significant at the moment, but maybe it's something that, maybe it's a seed of something that could grow into something at some point. So
In the past, we've done some, with LUBA and other land use planning issues. We've had quite substantial lawyer fees. Those have pretty much been raised independently by project. So that if money was needed, it was brought forward and then lobbied for amongst the group or extended people. So there has been some big ticket items go through, but they're very clear. 1 is for this, 2 is for that type thing.
Right, and I think, responded pretty well to those single case causes. But there's the drip of policy formulation. And certainly recently with the, comp plan approval and all the attendant things that are going on now in the name of affordability, having somebody keep some consistent.
Well, and I know that we've received some 401k donations that have been put into the NWDA. I mean, that's the type of thing that we need to have that
Right.
budget in place to look at.
Any other comments or anything online?
If you're interested, I have the running budget for the NWDA up on, I can share it with you all now if you'd like to see it.
I don't think it's necessary. I think we're just talking about the issue of like, should we pursue more fundraising activities? Is this like advertising idea something that we would want to try out? Noel says yes. And anybody else?
Did you have a perspective?
I think that method of raising money is fine. I mean, it's not gonna be, it's not gonna raise big ticket type. But for the smaller kind of things you're talking about, it probably makes sense. And, you just wanna have an editorial policy or something that, if you take political ads, you take them all.
Right.
And just have some sort of statement somewhere that the ads don't reflect the position of the district association.
Okay, what's the next step here then, if, and I'll ask the group for an agreement, to, look at this, but, is this, do we wanna like, get an opinion from a tax lawyer or,
I would be happy to leave it to you and Michael to sort this out.
okay, we'll figure it out.
And I think I would also just note, excuse me for going off track here, but obviously it's a bigger topic as well. And I encourage us to spend some time with that.
Yeah, no, I think it leads into a broader idea of, fundraising. It's something we really haven't been paying that much attention to lately.
Well, it comes and goes.
Yeah.
See that? Get somebody.
All right, so I'll put the motion forward. I'll make a motion to support, taking in advertising revenue from our newsletter.
Second.
Michael seconds. Anybody just want to be recognized? Any objections? Any comments?
Your comment about we should probably get some sense from some legal position about what we're really doing or what the limitations are. Other than that, then we'd probably go ahead after that information and form a committee or some sort of subcommittee to put together however we want to design it.
No.
I think did I hear you, Mike, not the word advertising, but to accept sponsoring businesses for the newsletter?
It would include, yeah, I mean, I just, general advertising could be anybody.
I'm telling you, I think that's what your motion should be.
Okay, so, friendly amendment to update the language to what?
You'd be, the idea is to welcome sponsoring neighborhood businesses for the monthly newsletter.
Got it, all right, so does that exclude political?
It's whomever the organization feels is a good alignment with our mission is who you'd accept sponsorship from. So you need not accept a grant, right? You need not accept a donation. You need not, and so this is a donation. And usually it's monthly, you express appreciation for the donation, the sponsoring business. And that's typically how this works.
Yeah.
Steve?
And the concerts are set up to do all of that as well.
Stephen?
Yeah.
How we use the money is separate, but it's not advertising.
Stephen Moskowitz.
That's right. Yeah, it has, I was thinking about that, and thinking
That sounds
advertising
good.
actually gets you into a business activity that
Right.
might affect as compared to taking a donation.
It's just
part of it.
sponsorship.
Yeah.
On Zoom, Stephen?
Yeah, just real quickly is that, when you do the advertising, it can constitute what's called unrelated business taxable income. And
Yeah.
that's just a matter, one, just remember that what you're taxed on is not the gross income that you get from those activities, but net income. And so you might want to really, before you start doing this, have a budget that begins to assess how much money you want to get from advertising, how much money you think you'll get from advertising, what expenses, if any, you think you'll incur in trying to solicit that advertising, and to have a sense, just a ballpark sense of what you might wind up with in terms of net taxable income to see whether that's going to be worth it.
Right, and Stephen, just to clarify, I think the motion on the floor is to not advertise, but to accept sponsorship on a monthly basis for the newsletter from a local business who might be interested in supporting NWDA and is aligned with our mission, and therefore we are not advertising.
Right. The donation.
Okay, so this is what's called the OPB approach. Our program is brought to you by, okay.
There's probably limitations at that point that what you can say in the sponsorship, you know, so then could NNCC say, dictate what they say about, we want to make this announcement, you know, would that be a sponsorship at that point, or would that be an advertisement?
I'm just suggesting what this motion should be. Person,
Procedurally. what
it's done
you
every
need to
day,
do.
including by OPD.
Okay, so do we want to tackle this with, we should accept sponsorships for the newsletter?
That's the question of the amendment that would then need to be moved and seconded if it goes through as amended.
Is there a second to amend the motion?
Second.
Is there any objection to amending the motion? Can you read the motion?
Can I?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
The motion is thus amended to state that, this nonprofit will be welcoming sponsorship for our monthly newsletter from those aligned with our mission. And we will be thanking them vis-a-vis our monthly newsletter for their support.
That's almost actually what I've got here.
Is there an objection to the new motion?
Just a clarification, we're out of politics then, we're just into local
Yes.
business.
Correct.
Okay.
Is there an objection? All right, so the motion is successfully amended. Now, is there an objection to the amended motion? If there's not an objection, it will pass. All right, so moved.
See.
All right. On to the next topics here. I think that, is this the president's report we're getting into now?
It is.
All right, so we'll just hit these, Providence Park Concert Transit. So this is just a continuing discussion. I think we broached this last time, about, we have 4 huge garages available, to the public from Legacy. They're open, through the week from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. It's $1 an hour parking, $5 max. And it's also open all day Saturday and all day Sunday at the same fee, so you can park in the garage for $10 the whole weekend. I think that's gonna be valuable, especially for the new concerts coming up, which will start in August, because there's gonna be a lot of people coming into the neighborhood, not sure what they're doing. And I think the Timbers people sort of have it figured out, just because that's sort of like a regular crowd. But the concert people are just gonna be, it's gonna be a kind of a mess. So I'd like to see the parking district sort of take this on and put out some signs or flyer cars and make it known for people that come to the neighborhood that they can go there, and that's a place they can park. I think there are sort of restrictions as far as the district plan goes and some other limitations that we don't want to broadcast to the metro area to come drive your car here, but I think we can do this in a responsible way, that if people end up in the neighborhood, we can tell them that, hey, this is where you can go park, and not, you know, kind of create a chaotic situation in the streets like it is now. Steve?
Is there anything similar to what the Timbers are doing around these concerts? Are they providing, is your ticket a bus pass as well, and are they promoting?
I think it's still being worked out. I think now there's some sort of ticket thing moving forward where there's like an email attached to a ticket, and then that email sort of updates as the ticket moves hands. So there might be a way to reach out to ticket holders. You know, is that, I don't know if the district plan would really want us to reach out to everybody that has a ticket saying, come park here, but that might be something.
It seems like it wants to be the same thing as the program for Timbers games, that your pass is your bus ticket.
Oh, I see, with TriMet.
Yeah.
I don't think it is, to be honest. I think that's something that we're looking
It's the
at.
same people.
It is, I think, so right now TriMet has a deal where if you have a Timbers ticket, you can ride for free on the Max and the bus for like an hour or two before and after the game.
Isn't Paragon involved in these concerts?
Say it again?
Isn't Paragon involved in these concerts?
I don't think so. I think
Maybe not.
I think that they own the sports team and lease the stadium. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. But I know that that's something we should look into.
Yeah.
I think the deal is that, the TriMet ticket is the public transit pass is only for the Timbers, I believe.
Right.
But that's, something maybe we should reach out to,
And the Thorns,
that organization.
although the Thorns are part of Peregrine anymore.
Right. So we could look for some clarification there, but moving back to the parking facilities, I really think that we should, as a neighborhood, start to press people to promote their good, responsible use, let's say, because they're sitting empty during Timbers games. I've heard complaints from a couple different business owners that they're kind of really upset now that, the pricing has been elevated again to park on the street during the games, and that starts a couple hours before the game, which doesn't really make sense. But that's something the parking district has worked out. So anyway, back to the main point, we have these big, huge parking facilities that aren't being used, could be used to help alleviate our, the pain we're feeling on the streets for those events. And honestly, I think it's a good, if people get used to parking in those garages, that's gonna be good for the businesses up in our commercial districts too, which has a knock-on effect to help the neighborhood. And by the way, the parking district will meet on Wednesday, and it'll be the first official meeting of the parking SAC since September, I think. It's the first meeting after the pause. It should be an interesting meeting if anybody wants to check that out. I'd like to see us press them to get these garages promoted a little better. Any comments on that idea, or?
Seems like you could make some attractive signs.
Totally.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. And even the signs that tell you can park there are not really well done. It's very confusing and doesn't really seem that they're open to the public, to be honest. We'll move right into the Northwest Parking District SAC update. The update is there's a meeting on Wednesday. We had a decent meeting. Did we talk about this the last board meeting? We had a decent one-off meeting that was scheduled by the SAC itself, and kind of threw the ball around, trying to figure out what the pause meant, what we want to look like moving forward.
I think we did discuss it last
Okay.
month, but what we have gotten since then is the package from them. How this pause is going to refresh all of us.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a weird, interesting meeting on Wednesday, so, if anybody would like to attend, please do.
When is it? Where is it?
It is,
Wednesday, 5 o'clock here.
yeah,
In Zoom.
and online.
I would be happy to send the refresh packet out to anyone that's interested.
Any, questions about the SAC parking districts? All right, District 4 neighborhoods meeting, the one for March was canceled kind of unceremoniously. The executive director had a personal issue come up and couldn't hold the meeting, so the next one will be coming up so the April 4th meeting was the one that was canceled. There will be another meeting on the first week in May. And this kind of dovetails right into the bylaws review. NWNW is taking on the responsibility to become the District 4 coalition for what will be the collection of neighborhoods in District 4. What is happening is that NWNW is updating their bylaws to admit more neighborhoods into the organization. And so it's not going to be a brand new corporate structure. It's going to be an amended corporate structure to accept the new neighborhoods. I think the issue there in a way is that there's 11 neighborhoods being served now from NWNW. That number is going up to 31. And the bigger question is, what is the board gonna look like? What is the board structure gonna look like? And sort of we're, you know, us and the Pearl and Goose are sort of the big players in the Northwest. And we're sort of gonna be drowned out in 31 members, and a lot of these are kind of little guys in the Southwest. So in a way, we're kind of ceding our influence over the coalition. And so that has to be done, I would say, kind of carefully and deliberately. So I'm on the bylaws committee trying to figure out what this corporate structure, what the governance will look like. And so what has been proposed is having each of the 31 neighborhood associations having a board seat. The big board will meet quarterly, so 4 times a year, and then there will be an executive board of 9 to 11 members that will handle the day-to-day and execution of you know, whatever mission is put together by the big board, let's say. So what is, I think that has been met with some decent reception, that it seems to be a good compromise of how to have everybody involved, but also have a structure where it will be total chaos with 31 people, you know, trying to push around an organization. The issue, of course, now is what would those 11 seats look like, and who would make up those seats? And so that is sort of the difficult issue that's being discussed now. And from my point of view, I was concerned that this littler committee wouldn't fully represent the coalition, the district as its entirety, because you could have a lot of them like down in the Southwest, or, you know, how many, you know, what if we only have 1 or 2 executive board members from the Northwest, and we're sort of being drowned out? So how do you create a board that has sort of, you know, an even representation of the bigger board? You know,
Don't we also have a section, doesn't District 4 also have a section of, is it Southeast or, yeah?
So yeah, Sellwood is, you know, a huge neighborhood, and there's a couple of neighborhoods additionally, in addition to Sellwood down there that are gonna be a part of the District 4 thing. So what I proposed a couple of days ago was that there should be 2 ballots for the small board. The first one would seat 7 seats, and that would just be every neighborhood association gets a vote, and you vote for each of the 7 slots. And then the remaining 4 would be a second ballot where each association gets the number of votes as people served in that neighborhood association. And then you could vote for any candidate in any quantity to fill those remaining seats, and whoever gets the most amount of votes in those remaining 4 seats gets put on the board. My thought there is the bigger districts would have a bigger say in the organization, you know, and would be sort of, you know, could sort of put a seat in there. And also there is a lot of discussion about how to make this a diverse board. And I think legislating diversity into a board just seems like something that not even like a competent, you know, well-oiled machine could handle, let alone, you know, a district coalition. So to me, giving that second ballot would be a way to kind of horse trade if there was a coalition of different neighborhoods that would want to, you know, inject their own idea of like what a diverse candidate would be, or, you know, all the, you know, West Side homeowners wanted to figure out who they could put on, you know, somebody on that executive board that would represent their interests or whatever. It would just be a good catch-all for people to kind of, you know, inject their own idea of what diversity would be into the board. So anyway, that's where I'm at with that. Let me know your thoughts and questions.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck, that's all I can say. You know, are you voting for the neighborhood or for the neighborhood representative? You know, but I would hold out for a permanent position on the security council. I mean.
Well, what's interesting, you say that, but the current 11 neighborhoods are gonna have to vote to amend these bylaws.
Right.
So we have sort of an upper hand of deciding how this is gonna look, and I don't think that should be wasted. And we should make sure that that we have influence, and we're the biggest neighborhood association in the whole group. And I don't wanna just say, all right, little guys or whoever, take the wheel and cede any kind of influence on the district coalition.
Right, even the old NW still, 18,000 in NWDA and 1,100 in Arlington. It's like pretty distinct.
Correct.
There, but
No,
Well, thank you again, but also it seems like the conundrum is an age-old conundrum, right? So whether it's the UN or whether it's the United States or any other parliamentary, the United States solved it by having a Senate,
Electors.
right?
Yeah.
House of Representatives. And, the two bodies that you were mentioning could be the same thing. So Connecticut and Wyoming have the same in the Senate say as California, right? Which is the 5th biggest economy in the world. That seems weird. But at the same time, the House of Representatives has proportionality. So it does seem like for the past 250 years, that's been empirically the best solution found today. And I don't know by most metrics, it has been, even if we don't have issues, but would you really trade place being another, Americans done pretty well. So
I would go with a parliamentary system with a lot more representation, like some of the European countries, to be honest with you.
So that's a third option. So I just
Yeah.
said,
Okay.
cite, don't reinvent the
Electoral
wheel.
college.
right, and I think
Yeah,
there's
no electoral college, please.
there's two things I'm concerned about. Number one is sort of like that the bigger neighborhoods don't get drowned out. And then the geographic diversity too is something that I have my eye on, because you don't want, the Selwood crew deciding what the organization is doing day to day. Let's hit Michael real quick.
So the current NWNW group is doing this rewrite of the bylaws without anybody from the southeast being there.
We're encouraging them, and we're gonna have a presentation to the whole DC4 on whatever that date is for early May, and we'll get their input, but they don't get a vote.
Okay, and then the other thought, when you do these new bylaws or revise the bylaws, how can the bylaws be amended? Because the Northwest could easily be outvoted by everybody on the east side to change it after it's already set up.
That would say the same where you would need 2/3 votes there's a clause in the current bylaws to
2/3.
amend the bylaws, and I assume that would stay the same. That's just not something, we're more just working on how that corporate entity the board structure will look. See,
two things relatively quickly. One, gosh, I guess it kind of makes sense, but if I was not an NWNW member organization, it's kind of a weird glide path into it when you've got another select group, existing group setting kind of the bylaws and the framework for this thing. I give it a shot, I guess, but I could see where that's gonna just kind of automatically raise eyebrows, I would think, even if they're, even in the busting of, goodwill and intentions. Secondly, the thing that's on the agenda here is potentially a motion to reaffirm previous NWDA resolutions, and I'm not sure that we necessarily need to do that at all, but it's simply to remind this organization and this group that the NWDA did take a position on what was being proposed as revisions to the coalition's bylaws a year and a half ago, with two specific things. One, that the membership not include non-neighborhood representatives, because that was something that the city was really pushing. SEUL had implemented it, and all by themselves had put their board at 35 people plus, and it just seemed like a really bad idea. It might make some sense, in some respects, but in terms of actual governance, it doesn't make any sense at all. And secondly, that the mission of the coalition stay the mission of the coalition, which is basically to provide administrative support to poor, overstretched neighborhood associations. And secondly, to provide a forum for comparing notes and common advocacy. That's it. That's it. And the city of Portland these days, now I'm editorializing, but that will get so gummed up and overloaded that I think you really have to defend and preserve a very basic, understandable mission, or we're just gonna be chasing our tails forever.
And that's something we talked about early on, and you know, I'm on the same page with you, and so are the current board members of the NWNW, that it should remain a neighborhood focused and board member supported organization. But there is pressure coming from somewhere. I don't know where it is. If it's a lot from the executive director and maybe some people in the background to admit other organizations, and that just seems like complete chaos.
It's the daily hangover.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's a question that Juliet put in the comments.
Okay.
She had to go, but is Civic Life helping NWNW or supporting them in the rewrite?
No. No, but that does bring up another point. I'll talk about the funding of the coalition, which is something that has come up, which is a little odd. So right now, NWNW is being funded at about $350,000 to support 11 neighborhoods. The proposed new budget for the whole coalition for 31 neighborhoods is $420,000, which is a $70,000 bump from where we're at now to serve 3 times the neighborhoods. So per dollar funding per neighborhood will go from about $30,000 per neighborhood down to like $14,000 per neighborhood once we, increase barely the budget to 420 and then, admit 31 members. So I testified to City Council on Saturday about this issue during the budget hearings or whatever, the listening sessions. I think Dan Ryan heard it, and then it brings up another point too, where it's weird that, like, where's the money? Like, we're, because the Southwest neighborhoods have a coalition. They used to have their own coalition office, and then I don't know exactly the story of how that went away, but the city then took that over. And traditionally, we've been funded, as far as I know, at the $350,000 level. So are the Southwest neighborhoods. So together, we should be looking at like $250,000 for 31 neighborhoods altogether, which is something probably that is very workable. Not this 420 number, but then the question is, where did that $300,000 go? And the answer, as far as I understand it, is that Civic Life created full-time positions, at least one and maybe more, to support the district coalition, the city supported district coalition office for the Southwest. They're reabsorbing those positions back into Civic Life and not replacing the funding into neighborhoods. So they took neighborhood money to fund these positions. They're taking the positions back into Civic Life, and so also the money. So that money is being disappeared down a Civic Life hole, and so that's where the missing money is. And so I touched on that in the testimony, and I think that's something that we should be angry about, because we should be funded. We shouldn't be taking a 50% haircut on a per neighborhood funded, basis moving forward. I know there's budget constraints and the mayor wanted a 5% haircut, but a 50% haircut is, I think it's terrible.
Another question, are all neighborhood, so are the 31 neighborhoods, it's like each one gets a 1/31st piece of the pie? If you have a neighborhood of 20,000 people and then you have a neighborhood of 1,000 people, they get the same amount of money?
So there's no neighborhood, the pie doesn't get split per neighborhood, but what does happen is there's fixed costs per neighborhood association that are incurred by the district coalition office, as far as like officers' insurance goes, supporting Airtable for a membership database, the small grants and this and that. So, the issue there too is that Civic Life has decided to fund each of the 4 district coalition offices equally. except that districts 1 and 4 each have 30 neighborhood associations, and 2 and 3 have like 11. And like I just mentioned, you know, there's fixed cost per neighborhood, not only in money, but time, you know, like Carl and Darlene, you know, have to answer questions from individual neighborhood associations about, you know, everything that kind of comes up. So like how you have to think of like staffing at that point, you know, like so how is it fair that each coalition should be funded equally when there are fixed neighborhood, you know, costs and time and money, and we have 3 times that number in this coalition? So what they did is basically said, you know, we're just going to cut it on an equal population, you know, district level, and fair is fair. But it's like once you like look at what that money is being used for, it's not fair at all. But also we have a problem of saying like, oh, the west side deserves more money than, you know, the north and the central districts. That doesn't really go over well either. So what I had suggested is that Civic Life funds the district coalitions with a fixed amount per neighborhood association, and then leftover money can be divided equally among the coalitions. And something like that could be workable, but this sort of like lazy cut it 4 ways and call it a day without even paying attention to what the money's going to, like it's you know, this just doesn't sit very well with me, and nor a lot of people that know the details of how this is working or how it's proposed to work.
Civic one.
No.
No, I think this is really interesting, but if it's helpful, there's 2 issues I'm hearing. One of them is like the money, where the resources is going, and the other is the governance and the structure, representation. And I'd observe that like you can fix later how money is flowing and where. You cannot fix later the structure, right? So in terms of where we as a group might prioritize, or where I might suggest that you can do this, like we agree to a structure that permanently underrepresents the density, areas of density.
Yeah.
That's just gonna be forever.
And I think we're gonna need to, you know, once those proposed bylaws get solidified, which they're not now, it's very hazy, I think we're gonna need to ask the group to write a letter or take a position.
Yeah, okay. And then again, like, don't reinvent the wheel. It could be parliamentary if you want, the British style or whatever. But the point is, like, everything y'all have been saying is exactly been considered by John, you know, by Quincy Adams, by Madison, by Jefferson. Like, none of this is new. So.
Except we don't have the slavery component.
No,
Which is a big factor in how that will turn out.
Well,
Sorry.
I hear the joke, but it's not.
It's not a joke.
Oh, sorry. Well, then I guess it is. Yeah. But the basic governance is not new.
Right.
I would, again, just encourage us not to stray too far from how these organizations, these deals were set up X number of years ago. I mean, obviously some things are different, but a lot of stuff just simply isn't.
Yeah.
And it's all getting kind of fuzzed into, well, this has always been integrated with the city. Well, it hasn't at all.
Right.
It's completely independent of the city. That was the whole point.
That's the point, right?
So let's not lose sight of that perspective.
And every administrative branch will always say, don't you want me part of the voting?
Yeah.
And the point is, no, you're the administrative branch, not the legislative branch. And they don't like that.
Any last comments or thoughts on this issue? It's a big one. We've taken up a lot of time on it. I think we sort of have a handle on it so far, but it's something that we need to pay attention to. Anybody?
Stay with it.
All right, thank you. Let's move into executive committee report and the election upcoming for us. Our
I'll try
election.
to go through this stuff. Election is, annual meeting and election is next month. Stay tuned to your feeds, I guess is the term we use for more input. I don't think there's anything I really need to go into right now. We've got a couple of people that have responded to the call, but could use more people. There are 2 of us who are turning out. One of us who is not continuing, and there is 1 open seat. So I think that equals 4 open positions. We have, have not had a full complement of 15 board members for some number of years, and that seems like it's okay. 15 seems like a lot, but that's me editorializing again. But I would recruiting people is really where it's at. So I would encourage all of us to don't grab onto your neighbor and say, looking for something for your extra spare time. Yeah. Because that's what it's at,
And then that deadline's coming up too, to declare.
a week from today.
Is there a simple email that might have been floated that I missed that would be like, hi, I'm Todd, would you like to be on the neighborhood association? If so, give me a call.
Yeah, I haven't really, and Steve brought this up to me this afternoon. I really haven't done any recruiting at all.
Okay.
There is an email that went out to the entire membership, I guess, that says we're calling on candidates, but it's something that, you know, we.
Oh, and you should have been at least on that.
I probably was. Like, my point is, for helpful, it's like, if I could ladder up to like 5 or 6 of my friends and be like, hey, call Todd or call Steve, get perspective beyond me. I think that's how I've converted before.
But
That'd be awesome, yeah.
absolutely. So, I mean, that's the battle. As I said, we've had the good fortune. Some people just go, yeah, I'm interested. But
Even for short years, like Joe or Anthony, those younger guys, yeah.
I'm gonna keep going on into the planning committee report. Actually, nothing new on the crisis center. So that bounced off into the question of, okay, what is the supportive housing component? What are the supportive housing components? 2 different versions of it, because they were quite clear on what the mental health treatment piece was. But the supportive housing is a much bigger piece to the puzzle and has a lot more variability to it. So that all came up at the last meeting, and everything is kind of in suspension until we get a better picture of that. NB2H, now the Montgomery Park Area Plan, MAPAP, something like that.
Sounds like
Update, that keeps chugging along, by golly, you know, as though the streetcar's actually gonna get put in, and, you know, as though a lot of stuff's gonna happen, that just. You know, we're gonna, the planning committee will have met last week internally on where the project is, or where the project is now. We're gonna meet with city staff this week and with the ownership group probably the following week to just try and get up to speed. That I think need to do each of these in segments. Some amount of the interaction with the ownership group, I think, needs to kind of be off screen as well. So,
So
but
you're talking about the ownership group of the kind of ESCO property, the former ESCO property,
yeah, well,
and the lender that was taken back. Government,
Well, yeah,
it was a foreign bank.
It's not
Yeah.
foreign.
It's not foreign?
Okay.
Oh,
It's most of your pensions.
okay.
The money.
in any respect, there are also underlying questions that NWDA has raised for now, what's almost 5 years, about some of the assumptions that are going on, that are long-lived in where the city wants to take this thing, particularly regarding upzoning in terms of its impact on the what's on the ground right now, which in some cases is actually a fair amount of affordable commercial and industrial space, which doesn't continue to exist if the whole place is up, so more or less. And secondly, to put it in kind of blunt terms, what amounts to, I think, a windfall for some number of the parties. It's not quite clear yet what is being proposed as the concurrent public benefit that would typically go along with the granting of upzoning status and the increase in the value of parcels of land in the area. The city has been really dodgy to date about the creation of public open space, which has typically been that's the trade-off. I don't know, what was the trade-off 10 years ago in Slamtown?
Yeah, that worked out.
Yeah, exactly. It was the trade-off 20 years ago in the Pearl, and that actually did happen. So the trend line is not great on this to start with. And I don't know, Phil, how long ago were we dealing with, the sunsetting of the Conway master plan? That was 2 years ago now, and where's that darn park? Certainly what happened after the plan sunsets. See, anyway, I don't need to detour too much on that, but that's what's up right now. I think that's the big thing from the planning committee.
I'll just say,
Any comments, questions?
I'll make a quick comment. I was walking through Slaptown earlier, and it's really it's amazing like how nice that turned out. Like, I wasn't any a part of the effort that went into making that what it turned out to be. But I would say it's from going 15 years ago, it was a trucking parking lot, to what you see now walking around. It's really amazing. A lot of those buildings are being finished up and are getting ready for occupancy. I think there's one more building left that hasn't broken ground yet. But I think I walked through there today before this meeting and thought that there's been a tremendous effort by a lot of people, members of this organization, to make sure that that turned out to be a good development, and it really was. And we're still struggling to get that park in, but progress is being made there. We're chipping away at it, and I'm just really proud of everybody that had anything to do with making that what it is today. It's wonderful to walk through and think about how much has changed in a short amount of time.
Just tag on that a little bit. I think had an ownership group in that case that was, or an individual really who talked his ownership group into thinking that really the way to optimize shareholder value is to spend endless hours in neighborhood association meetings. But he wasn't really wrong, because it wasn't endless hours at all, first of all. But I think what was conveyed to them was that, a reasonable density and some variation relative to the local conditions, or their very micro local conditions, is probably the way to go. And oddly enough, or ironically enough, the thing I love is if you go into some of the, which I guess I wouldn't recommend this, but go into some of the architectural chat groups floating around, and there's a kind of consistent chatter about, God, all those buildings are the same height, and they all have the same materials. And couldn't we have done something more exciting? And, somewhere in there is a comment that Steve Pinker threw in, which is, yeah, sure, we could have done something more exciting, but, for who? Probably not for the people that are living there, or not for the neighborhood, but for people visiting the city and architects. Something more exciting would be great, like, in Oslo, the place we keep citing, which looks like, and I'll stop soon, but you go to this site documenting, I can't remember what the name of that development is in Oslo, that, all the architects are just, you're not worthy, you're not worthy. There's not a single person in any of those photographs, I swear to God. And, okay.
That's philosophy.
It's cold.
Oh, we're only as good as Paris in terms of material consistency. That's, that we can handle that. And it's funny you guys bring this up, because I do agree with, so Freewell, but Tom Black's project is just got its occupancy permit last week. And then, Brennickey's did get it, and then Brennickey's will get it in the next couple of months. And so then there's one parcel left, right? And I do think that, were you mentioning Craig Boris when you're?
I was.
Yeah,
but
so I think Craig gets a lot of credit on behalf of the original, like Conway, XPO. And then Tom Bachara and his partner, Rob Hinnon, and then on the day-to-day execution, James Santana. And like, people, want to think like, how did this happen? And the answer is, it's like a handful of people that just for 10 plus years with ethics and with consistency and patience and persistence did it. It's that simple. And so I was standing there, it's funny you're there because I was standing there at the intersection today thinking that, and if this neighborhood could somehow acknowledge that, you know, it probably matters to two people and a mouse, but still, like, it would matter to them.
I can name two people.
Yeah.
I don't know about the mouse, but
Yeah, it turned out well.
yeah.
Put it like on a little plaque somewhere.
Yeah. Like, not too bad, guys, you know?
Yeah, not too
So,
bad, guys. That's a pretty good,
Yeah.
that's not too bad.
Usually it's pretty bad, so.
Yeah.
Well,
Not too bad.
from the Highway 30 ramp, you look down there, God, they are all the same height. Who want to go down there until you go down there?
Yeah, except for there are some,
Quite all the
right?
same height.
They're not all the same height, it
And
turns out.
actually,
Yeah.
you know, the street envelope is pretty good.
Yeah,
And it's not a canyon.
but
And, you know, the start NWDA folks were not involved in all of that, so, but had, you know, an enlightened
So-
developer and an enlightened ownership.
yeah.
If you guys are like termed out of the board, are you still gonna be on the planning committee?
I think that's a lifetime.
That's a lifetime appointment. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, final comments before we move to the parks, their final, topic. Anybody? Online, Zoom land? I'm pretty quiet. All right, let's, move to parks.
So Tanya had an emergency tonight, so she's not here, but several things are ongoing. At the highest level, we haven't had an update on the Slabtown Park, so that's something we need to keep pushing on. Moving on to the second topic, the city has taken down the Park Watch app. And that was where you used to be able to write in and say, the light's out on 21st next to whatever. That has been taken away with no replacement, and we're trying to identify what happened. Because the thing that was good about that is it was transparent, so if you submitted a problem in Wallace Park, that there was a water issue in this corner, they would come back to you and said, water's been turned off or something. So there was a point and a counterpoint. Now there's no way to track any of the activities for the parks, so that is a big concern. Third, we're actually considering and going to be meeting with some of the people that do the Portland concert series. Britta, who runs the hostel, would really like to see us engaged so that we can have more of a coordination across Portland on what's being done. We kind of want to make sure we keep it local to what we want. We don't want thousands of people coming into Northwest Portland as opposed to focusing it on the neighbors. So Tanya's activity was to meet with Britta and get more information. That'll come back to that. Fundraising, we're actually doing pretty well. We're still going to send out a few more letters, but we've got enough base to initiate all activity and keep moving forward. So that's going well. We also, and I think Todd, you did this and several others, we had some really good new membership come to the last meeting and had a lot of good new ideas, and we're gonna try to meet with them both individually and in part of the meeting. One of them was a past events organizer, so we're trying to kidnap her and get her into good shape.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And so, I'd say things are going well. I do want to say that with everything that's going, we will need to look at long-term support of the Parks Committee, just because we're gonna have some turnover on that, so we need to make sure we have people there that can continue on this.
Any questions for parks? Giselle?
I'll just comment, there was a period, in which I was, as secretary, was getting new members constantly coming through off of the site, and was pretty good at replying to them, going, you know, welcome, and here's our committees, you know, any of these you can participate with, and almost all of them were interested in participating. Most everybody with safety and livability, but a lot with the parks as well. Things being what they are, the last 6 months have been a little slow with that effort. I mean, this would be something that, you know, you actually could automate, but it might not be quite the same. But at the same time, that's just one of those little things that it seems like a neighborhood association should just do, and even if it's done by a human being, it's so little time, but you know, it got out of my pattern of things, so there you go. So, but there's about a 6-month backlog of people
Okay.
I will.
Well, yeah, send them over and we'll
Yeah.
reach out. I was real pleased because, two of the new people were renters. So that we had, we've got quite a lot of age, profession and other activities and diversity. We don't frankly have race diversity, but we have gender diversity and the rest of them. So I feel that as a parks group, we're quite diverse in our focus. Yes.
Do we need money for the summer concerts that's often read about now? What do we?
Yes, yes, and if we've missed you, I will send you a letter.
How much money do we ever look in?
All the money.
All of it.
You know what?
Usually like 1,000.
Yeah, I was gonna go 500 to 1,000, because that gets you the biggest thing on the sign.
Yeah.
So I'll send you a note and send it through. Appreciate that, thank you.
Rich has a question.
Yeah, Giselle, I've been in contact with the Parks Commission. They say they have a new website, a new link that's called, that I put in the chat. That is the link that you're supposed to use to report issues with the parks, report a park maintenance or safety issue.
Okay, I'll take a look at that, because our meeting was at the beginning of April and there wasn't actually any activity there, so. Okay, yeah, the park scan is what went away from it.
Yeah, so this is apparently replacing Park Scan.
I think the key thing we want to identify is what is the transparency, because that was what was so good about Park Scan, was it had a, here you put in and there's the response of what happened. So that's what I'll follow up with.
Well, Parks and Rec is the most opaque organization I've ever tried to deal with. So I doubt whether there's going to be any transparency to it.
Just in the city.
Planning? I mean, you know.
They fixed the question.
Yeah, and then there's peace on it.
Any additional questions for parks? All right, great.
I do have one more thing. So because of the Montgomery Park transactions, we have had, we don't have a warehouse place for the roller skating activity.
Oh.
So if we can figure out who we can contact in the new organization.
Is Cody gone?
Yes, he is. We followed up with Cody and they're no longer in any of the process of that, so we don't have a direct contact.
Unicoast.
Yeah. So did they give, someone's managing it, but you just don't know?
But we don't, we,
Okay.
Cody gave us a very nice goodbye, I'm heading out, rah, 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 but we don't have any breadcrumbs to who the
Oh,
next person
I can
is.
help with that. So send me an email that would be just on like the peer neighborhood, like, hi, we want to roller skate.
Okay,
Ooh. And then I can try to see if I can
Yeah.
fish
Done.
for it.
done.
Yeah.
No,
It's just
appreciate
the
that.
Groups are on Boston.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
think what's important is we've got our own insurance, we have a history of no damage, so,
No, it's a very good group.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like Oregon State.
And what's really funny is the, disco group that plays the music for us and provides the, roller skates hasn't billed us. So we've written them formal letters and we are deciding, after 3 letters, we have in good faith tried to pay them and they want to come back next year. So we're like, okay.
So there's that type of vendor, and then there's the vendor that, you know, sucks it out of your account before you.
Yeah.
Certainly before they've done it, but.
We figured
That's
as
it.
long as we had proof that we tried to put it there.
Any new business or additional topics that should be addressed before we move to public comment?
I do.
Go ahead.
It's not exactly new, it's adjacent because we're in Friendly House, but right now the online Friendly House auction is happening. So, please go online and see if there's anything you'd like to bid on. It's a key
Yeah,
organization.
like a sponsorship of a summer concert might be on there.
That's an idea.
Sure, and the Michael
Yeah.
Vieira Foundation.
But anywho,
Any anything additional?
Joselle, could you give us just a quick update about what's going to happen on April 23rd with NWCC
Oh, and NCC.
and NCC?
So what we're looking at is we're working with Gaia or Founders Organization, which is the ownership that is buying the building that is the Christian Science Church there. They have steadily paid their activity, so we're feeling good about that. There was some major damage that was done by water damage and some other entrance that was done right at the beginning of the year. The insurance company came back through at over $1 million plus to fix that and promptly dropped us. So we're working on who is the next insurance person to cover it. That actually is the owner of that is the mission of who's buying it. Founders is what they're doing, but we're thinking that if we can back that up and give them ideas of who they can get, that's important to make sure it's always under insurance role. We're gonna be, the only thing so what we're looking at is there is very little change in the board, and we're by design, because we're in kind of the last 12 months of that. And what we don't want to do, we want to be very transparent, but we don't want new people coming in and starting from scratch and reshifting everything. We're a little bit concerned about the delay that's been going on there, but the concern has been hand waved away with the permit process. And we're trying to get a bit more understanding of where that is in the activity. But we've got the money coming in. They've never stopped paying what they're supposed to, and they're committed to that. We're on them a little bit about actually upkeep of the site. So we've given them a formal request to make changes and clean up the garbage in the parking lot and redo the fences and trim the bushes. So that's it. I'm in charge of figuring out where the church pews go. So if you want a church pew, talk to me. I've got some really good deals on 30-foot church pews. Richard, am I forgetting anything?
No.
Okay. So I think, actually Ginger, I want to call out, Ginger's been very good about meeting with the lawyers and really interacting individually to get things set up. She's been real good about them bringing it out both in email to the executive committee, and we've had some pre-meetings prior to this meeting next week.
And the person that runs the building, there's like some condominiums or apartment complex like right next to the property. They've been really good about reaching out to Ginger about when they see some squirrely stuff happening or a trashy parking lot or whatever, and she's immediately on it. So that kind of got connected when there was some arson attacks, and that's actually been working out well. We have like eyes in the building and has, you know, made some suggestions about
What they do.
Improvements.
What is interesting, and as someone who's been in the grant committee making things that doesn't like to reward things before they're done, Gaia has received a top award for historic preservation this year from the city on how the planning department has really helped them put that project forward. Now, I am concerned because we don't have the permits, damn it. Why can't we get the permits if you're giving them an award for moving forward? So I'm a little bit cautious on that, to which Ginger says, it's the city, it's not our award. You can't do anything about this, but it just kind of makes me feel chicken and egg, because we're giving them an award for their idea, but we haven't, I mean, yes, they're paying us for it. So I don't want to go too off track there, but they haven't actually done anything on that yet.
The NWDA has formally encouraged BDS and their attending commissioners to
Good, because that's,
move it along.
yeah, because I, that's what we're being told why there is,
6 months.
well, that's why we're being told they haven't broken ground or anything, and it's like,
Yeah, I think it's probably a little more.
I think it is, but.
It's not entirely the city, I'm quite sure of that, so.
Well, and if that's the case, coach us how to ask the question, because that is a concern.
Okay.
Well, they were,
I'd be happy.
I'll talk to you about that offline, Noel, because I don't have any reason to believe, because I am the treasurer, so I do see the money coming in, and they've met all their commitments. It just feels funny.
If you're getting the money coming in, you're like one of the only potential developments in the entire freaking nation that's still happening on, so that speaks highly of that.
Yeah. Well, that's where I'm being cautious.
Yeah.
I kind of would like to see more movement, so.
Yeah.
they've missed the ball a couple of times in their submittal processes.
Okay, and that's what, I mean, that's, how do we get them started? Because Noel, you're correct. I think they in good faith are trying to do what they want to do.
Okay.
They have talked about the need of they're doing some refinancing now, which kind of does concern me, but they haven't stopped paying anything.
Anything else before we move to public comment? All right, public, would the public like to comment? Anything, Norm?
No. Nothing today.
All right, well, let's sing the song then.
Is this the Kumbaya one or what?
All right, any last thoughts or comments before we adjourn? All right, chair moves to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Objection?
No.
All right, good meeting. I think that went well. Thanks, everybody.